Whispered Lies, a tale of redemption in the Wild West, written by Reuben White. Chapter 1. Dusty Streets of Redemption. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty streets of redemption. A tumbleweed rolled lazily past the weathered buildings, its movement the only sign of life in the desolate town. Lawlessness hung heavy in the air, like the acrid smoke from a smoldering campfire, and the tension was palpable. In the heart of redemption stood the saloon, a ramshackle building that served as the town's beating heart. It was here that the cowboys gathered, seeking solace in whiskey and companionship amidst the harsh realities of the frontier. And it was here, amidst the clinking of glasses and the raucous laughter of the patrons, that Charlie Hatchet held court. A man of dubious repute, Charlie was known far and wide as the town drunk, his tongue as sharp as the blade of a knife and his wit as quick as lightning. As Charlie stumbled from table to table, his whiskey-soaked breath leaving a trail of chaos in his wake, the other patrons watched with a mixture of amusement and disdain. For Charlie was a man of many vices, chief among them his penchant for spreading malicious gossip and stirring up trouble where none was needed. But on this particular evening, Charlie's idle chatter would have far-reaching consequences. As he slurred his words and gestured wildly, his gaze fell upon Sam Dawson, a respected rancher known for his integrity and honesty. And in a moment of drunken folly, Charlie accused Sam of stealing cattle, his words hanging heavy in the stale air of the saloon. The room fell silent, the tension thick as molasses, as Sam's eyes narrowed in disbelief and anger. And as the other patrons exchanged wary glances and muttered amongst themselves, the stage was set for a showdown that would rock redemption to its very core. Chapter 2. Fury of the Rancher. Sam Dawson stormed out of the saloon, his jaw clenched with fury and his fists balled at his sides. The accusation hung heavy in the air, staining his reputation like a brand on a steer's hide. He had spent a lifetime building his ranch and earning the trust of his fellow townsfolk, and now it was all in jeopardy because of one drunken fool. With each step he took, Sam's anger burned hotter, fueling his determination to clear his name and restore his honor. He would not let Charlie Hatchet's lies tarnish everything he had worked so hard to build. No, he would fight tooth and nail to prove his innocence and expose the truth behind the slanderous accusations. As Sam made his way back to his ranch, his mind raced with thoughts of retribution. He knew that Charlie would have to pay for his words, for the harm he had caused not only to Sam, but to the entire town. And Sam vowed that he would be the one to deliver justice, no matter the cost. But as he approached the homestead, Sam's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Turning to see who it was, he was greeted by the sight of his son, Jake, riding hard towards him with a look of righteous fury on his face. "Pa," Jake called out as he pulled his horse to a stop beside Sam. "I heard what that no-good Charlie said about you in the saloon. I won't stand for it, Pa. I won't let him get away with it." Sam nodded grimly, his eyes flashing with determination. "Neither will I, son. Charlie Hatchet has made a grave mistake, and he will pay dearly for it. But we must proceed with caution. We cannot let our anger cloud our judgment." Jake's jaw clenched with anger, his hands tightening on the reins of his horse. "I understand, Pa, but I swear to you, I won't rest until Charlie Hatchet pays for what he's done. I'll make him regret ever opening his mouth." Sam laid a hand on his son's shoulder, his expression grave. "I know you will, Jake, but we must bide our time and plan our next move carefully. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and we must ensure that when the time comes, Charlie Hatchet will rue the day he ever crossed paths with the Dawsons. Chapter 3. Whispers of Revenge. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town of Redemption as whispers of Charlie Hatchet's accusations echoed through the streets. Like wildfire, his lies spread from one corner of the town to the next, igniting a spark of discord that threatened to engulf the entire community. In the saloons, cowboys gathered in hushed clusters, their voices low as they traded rumors and speculation about Sam Dawson's alleged misdeeds. Some shook their heads in disbelief, unwilling to believe that a man of Sam's stature could be capable of such treachery. Others nodded solemnly, their suspicions fueled by Charlie's persuasive words and the shadow of doubt that now hung over Sam's reputation. But amidst the whispers and speculation, one sentiment rang clear: a thirst for revenge. The air crackled with tension as the townsfolk braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation, their trigger fingers itching with anticipation. In the heart of redemption, Charlie Hatchet reveled in the chaos he had wrought. His lies had taken on a life of their own, spreading like a contagion through the town and sowing seeds of discord at every turn. And as he stumbled from saloon to saloon, his words dripping with venom and malice, he knew that he held the power to shape the destiny of redemption in the palm of his hand. But even as Charlie reveled in his newfound influence, a seed of doubt began to gnaw at his conscience. Deep down, he knew that his accusations against Sam Dawson were nothing more than the drunken ramblings of a fool, born of jealousy and spite. And as the whispers of revenge grew louder and the town teetered on the brink of chaos, Charlie couldn't help but wonder if he had gone too far. But try as he might, Charlie could not undo the damage he had done. The wheels of fate had been set in motion, and now redemption stood on the brink of a reckoning the likes of which it had never seen before. And as the sun set on another day in the Wild West, the stage was set for a showdown that would determine the fate of the town and all who called it home. Chapter 4. The Gathering Storm. As the sun rose on another sweltering day in redemption, the town braced itself for the inevitable showdown that loomed on the horizon. In the dusty streets, cowboys gathered in small groups, their faces grim and determined as they made preparations for the impending conflict. On one side stood Sam Dawson and his loyal ranch hands, their resolve as steely as the glint of their pistols in the morning light. They knew that Charlie Hatchet's lies had placed a target on their backs, and they would be damned if they let him get away with it. With each passing moment, their numbers swelled as other townsfolk rallied to their cause, drawn by a sense of loyalty and justice that burned like a fire in their souls. Meanwhile, across town, Charlie Hatchet huddled with his own band of followers, a motley crew of misfits and troublemakers drawn to his charisma like moths to a flame. They laughed and joked, their bravado masking the fear that gnawed at their insides. For they knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned, and that the coming confrontation would be a test of their mettle like none they had ever faced before. As the hours passed, the tension in redemption reached a fever pitch, the air crackling with anticipation as the two sides squared off for what promised to be a battle for the ages. In the saloons, whispers of the impending conflict filled the air, spreading like wildfire through the crowded rooms as the townsfolk braced themselves for the storm that was about to descend upon them. And as the sun reached its zenith and the shadows grew long, the stage was set for a showdown that would shake redemption to its very foundations. For in the heart of the untamed West, where justice was as scarce as water and the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon, only one thing was certain: blood would be spilled before the day was done. Chapter 5. A Drunken Revelation. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a pale glow over the town of redemption as Charlie Hatchet stumbled out of the saloon, his head spinning from the whiskey that sloshed in his belly. His footsteps were unsteady, his vision blurred as he made his way down the deserted streets, the silence broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. As he walked, Charlie's mind swirled with thoughts of the chaos he had unleashed upon redemption. The accusations he had hurled at Sam Dawson echoed in his ears like the tolling of a funeral bell, each word a damning indictment of his own foolishness and arrogance. For the first time in his life, Charlie began to understand the gravity of his actions. He had always prided himself on his ability to spin a good yarn, to weave tales of betrayal and treachery that entertained and amused the patrons of the saloon. But now, faced with the consequences of his lies, he realized that his words had consequences far beyond what he had ever imagined. In the darkness of the night, Charlie's bravado crumbled like a house of cards, leaving behind a hollow shell of a man racked with guilt and self-doubt. He knew that he had betrayed the trust of the people who had once called him friend, and that no amount of whiskey could wash away the stain of his sins. And yet, even as he grappled with his own remorse, Charlie found himself unable to escape the pull of the bottle. With each swig of whiskey, he retreated further into the haze of his own despair, seeking solace in the numbing embrace of intoxication. But amidst the fog of his drunken stupor, moments of clarity began to break through. Flashes of memory, fragments of conversation, snippets of regret that pierced through the fog and forced him to confront the truth of his own folly. And as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Charlie Hatchet found himself standing at the crossroads of redemption and ruin, unsure of which path to choose. For in the heart of the untamed West, where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon, the choices we make can have consequences that echo through the ages. And for Charlie, the time had come to face the demons that haunted him, and to confront the darkness that lurked within his own soul. Chapter 6. The Showdown at High Noon. The noonday sun beat down mercilessly upon the town of Redemption, casting harsh shadows across the dusty streets as the tension in the air reached its breaking point. All around, the townsfolk held their breath, their eyes fixed on the town square where the fate of Redemption would soon be decided. At one end of the square stood Sam Dawson and his loyal ranch hands, their faces set in grim determination as they awaited the arrival of their adversaries. Across from them, Charlie Hatchet and his band of followers gathered, their nerves frayed and their hands trembling as they prepared to face their reckoning. And then, in a moment that seemed to stretch for eternity, the first shot rang out, echoing through the silence like a thunderclap. In an instant, the town square erupted into chaos as gunfire filled the air and bodies fell to the ground, their blood staining the dusty earth crimson. For Charlie Hatchet and Sam Dawson, there could be no turning back now. They had crossed a line from which there could be no return, and now they would pay the price for their sins in blood and tears. As the battle raged on, the streets of Redemption ran red with the blood of the fallen, the cries of the wounded mingling with the sound of gunfire as the two factions clashed in a deadly dance of death and destruction. And amidst the carnage, Charlie Hatchet found himself face to face with Sam Dawson, their eyes locking in a silent exchange of hatred and defiance. In that moment, all pretense fell away, leaving behind only the raw truth of their enmity and the knowledge that only one of them would walk away from this confrontation alive. With a roar of rage, Charlie raised his pistol and fired, the bullet tearing through the air with deadly accuracy. But before it could find its mark, Sam Dawson was upon him, his own gun blazing as he fought tooth and nail to defend his honor and his home. And as the final shot rang out and the echoes faded into the distance, the town square fell silent once more, the only sound the ragged breathing of the survivors and the mournful wail of the wind as it swept through the deserted streets. In the end, the showdown at high noon had left its mark on Redemption, its scars a grim reminder of the cost of justice in a town where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon. And for Charlie Hatchet and Sam Dawson, the battle was over. But the war would rage on in the hearts and minds of those who survived to tell the tale. Chapter 7. The Crossroads of Redemption. In the aftermath of the bloody showdown, the town of Redemption lay in ruins, its streets littered with the debris of battle and the bodies of the fallen. The air was heavy with the stench of gunpowder and death, a grim reminder of the cost of justice in a town where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon. Amidst the devastation, Charlie Hatchet stood alone in the town square, his eyes hollow and haunted as he surveyed the carnage that surrounded him. For the first time in his life, he understood the true consequences of his actions, the lives lost and the families torn apart by his lies and deceit. And as he looked upon the faces of the dead and dying, a wave of guilt washed over him, threatening to consume him whole. He knew that he could no longer hide from the truth, that he must face the consequences of his sins and make amends for the damage he had caused. With a heavy heart, Charlie made his way to Sam Dawson's ranch, where the wounded rancher lay recovering from the battle that had torn their town apart. As he approached the homestead, his footsteps slow and uncertain, Charlie braced himself for the confrontation that awaited him. Knowing that he must face Sam and his son Jake and accept whatever punishment they saw fit to mete out. But as he entered the ranch house and came face to face with Sam and Jake, Charlie was surprised to find not anger and hatred in their eyes, but something else entirely: forgiveness. "We've all made mistakes, Charlie," Sam said, his voice weary but filled with a quiet resolve. "But it's what we do next that matters. Will you choose to wallow in guilt and self-pity, or will you rise above your past and strive to be a better man?" Charlie swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion as he searched for the words to express the turmoil raging within him. For so long, he had let his pride and his ego dictate his actions, heedless of the consequences they wrought. But now, faced with the consequences of his lies and the devastation they had wrought, he knew that he could no longer hide from the truth. In a moment of clarity, Charlie made his choice. He would not let his past define him, nor would he allow himself to be consumed by guilt and regret. Instead, he would strive to make amends for the damage he had caused, to seek redemption in the eyes of those he had wronged, and to honor the memory of those who had paid the ultimate price for his folly. And as he stood before Sam and Jake, his resolve firm and his heart lightened by the promise of a new beginning, Charlie Hatchet knew that he had finally found the courage to confront the demons that had haunted him for so long. For in the heart of the untamed West, where justice was as scarce as water and the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon, the choices we make can shape our destiny in ways we never imagined possible. And for Charlie Hatchet, the time had come to choose his path and to embrace the promise of redemption that lay before him. Chapter 8. The Path to Redemption. In the days that followed the bloody showdown in Redemption, the town lay in a state of uneasy peace, its inhabitants grappling with the aftermath of the violence that had torn their community apart. But amidst the rubble and ruin, a glimmer of hope began to emerge, a promise of redemption that shone like a beacon in the darkness. At the heart of this transformation stood Charlie Hatchet, a man once known as the town drunken troublemaker, now determined to make amends for the damage he had caused. With a heavy heart and a steely resolve, Charlie set about the difficult task of rebuilding the trust he had shattered with his lies and deceit. He began by seeking out those he had wronged, offering heartfelt apologies and promises of restitution to those whose lives had been irreparably altered by his actions. And though his efforts were met with skepticism and suspicion at first, Charlie refused to be deterred, knowing that true redemption could only be found through actions, not words. Slowly but surely, Charlie's sincerity began to win over even his harshest critics. As he worked tirelessly to repair the damage he had caused and to prove himself worthy of the forgiveness he so desperately sought. And as the days turned into weeks, the town began to heal, its wounds slowly closing as the bonds of trust and friendship were rekindled amidst the ashes of the past. But while redemption may have found a measure of peace in the wake of the violence that had engulfed it, the scars of the past would not be so easily forgotten. For the legacy of that fateful day would linger long after the last echoes of gunfire had faded into the distance, a reminder of the fragility of justice and the cost of redemption in a town where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon. Yet amidst the pain and the sorrow there remained a glimmer of hope, a promise of a brighter future forged in the crucible of adversity and tempered by the lessons learned from the violence and chaos that had engulfed the town. And as the sun set on another day in redemption, its streets silent and its scars still raw, the townsfolk dared to dream of a tomorrow free from the shadows of the past, where justice reigned supreme and redemption was within reach for all who sought it. Chapter 9. Shadows of Redemption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the streets of redemption, the town held its breath, caught between the darkness of the past and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. For in the fading light of day, the echoes of the violence and chaos that had torn the town apart still lingered, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the cost of justice, in a world where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon. Amidst the silence, Charlie Hatchet stood alone in the town square, his eyes fixed on the darkening sky, as he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. For so long, he had wandered lost in the wilderness of his own guilt and regret, unable to see the path that lay before him. But now, as he looked back on the trials and tribulations that had shaped him, Charlie understood that true redemption lay not in the absence of sin, but in the willingness to confront it, to accept responsibility for one's actions and strive to make amends for the damage done. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, Charlie knew that he was not alone. For in the hearts of the townsfolk who had stood by him in his darkest hour, he found the strength to carry on, to face the challenges that lay ahead with courage and conviction. And as he watched the sun sink below the horizon, casting long shadows over the streets of redemption, Charlie felt a glimmer of hope stir within him, a promise of a tomorrow free from the shadows of the past. For redemption was a town forever changed by the events that had unfolded within its borders, its streets haunted by the ghosts of those who had fallen and the memories of the battles that had been fought. But amidst the pain and the sorrow, there remained a sense of resilience, a determination to move forward and rebuild in the face of adversity. And as the night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, the town of redemption dared to dream of a future where justice reigned supreme and redemption was within reach for all who sought it. For in the heart of the untamed West, where the line between right and wrong blurred like the horizon, the choices we make can shape our destiny in ways we never imagined possible. And for redemption, the time had come to embrace the promise of a tomorrow filled with hope and possibility, where the shadows of the past could be banished once and for all. If you are enjoying adventures in the Wild West channel, feel free to hit the subscribe button for future posts and a humdinger of a tale.